Thanks for the kidney. Now back to work. Debating more time off for organ donors. All the schools arming teachers in Colorado have one thing in common. We'll talk with a gun rights advocate who wants one armed teacher per hallway. A DMV boss who hid when the office got busy. And the secret to Olympic athletes' recovery, beer. Now you tell me. Next. Imagine donating an organ to save a life and being expected back at work within days. Sounds ridiculous, but providing those lifesavers with extra time off will not be free. Politics guy Brandon Ridham is here to take us through the debate at the state capitol.
Hey, Kyle. Yeah, some of the people pushing for this were involved in a story we know really well by now. 3 years ago, a Flight for Life helicopter crashed up in Frisco. The pilot died. The flight nurse, though, survived, partly thanks to a donated kidney. Now he and his donor are pushing for change. The crash ruptured the helicopter's fuel tank. Flight nurse Dave Repsher ended up with burns on 90% of his body. The treatment for that would have killed him if it hadn't been for a gift.
How you doing, buddy?
Real good.
How's the hand?
Good.
Thumbs up?
A gift from an old ski patrol buddy.
Literally, he's a part of me now, and things have been great.
Dave needed a kidney. I actually contemplated it for a couple of weeks before I went and got tested. And at that point in time, I knew I was going to do it.
But donating a kidney comes with a lot of practical problems.
I was out of work for 6 weeks. I couldn't go back to work until I was 100% medically released. I'm an electrician by trade, so naturally carry a large tool belt with me every day.
Matt got short-term disability through work to help him pay his bills, but he knows not everybody has that.
I would have quit and went off my 401k. Being honest, that's how much it meant to me to help out Dave and his family.
That's not a decision they want anyone to have to make. So they're backing a bill from organ donation groups, a new tax credit for companies. If you pay your employee while they're donating an organ, the company could get a tax credit for 35% of those wages for up to 2 weeks.
You know, that can make a difference between someone saying, yes, I can, or I'm sorry, I can't do it because I just don't have those resources.
The crash was awful, but it's taught Dave that your friends can really be a matter of life and death. And for these guys, there's more life ahead.
Hopefully next year we can get him back on his skis.
And skis?
I think we'll all root for that. And so this bill, by the way, just passed committee moments ago, 8-3 with bipartisan support, but it still has to clear the House of Representatives and then cook over to the Senate. Dave, by the way, is the person who we recently reported reached a $100 million settlement over the issue of shoddy fuel tanks in certain kinds of helicopters and all the great work that's gone into that from 9 Wants to Know and Chris Vanderveen and company.
Two quick questions. What was the recovery time on that donation, and then also chances this goes all the way through the ledge?
Yeah, he says he's feeling great now, but it was 6 weeks because his job involved lifting. So if you had more of a clerical job, 2 weeks might actually do the thing. And then as far as the political future, as I mentioned, it has bipartisan sponsors, and it doesn't come with a huge fiscal note. It does add some expense because they have to change some tax forms, but it's not a wild amount of money that the state expects to be paying out to the handful of people who are donating organs every year.
Gotcha. Thank you, Brandon.
Appreciate it.
Armed teachers are in more than 15 schools in Colorado right now, all of them rural schools. No suburban or city district has participated in the FASTER program, which trains school staff to carry concealed to stop a school shooter. We know that school shooters have attacked buildings that have uniformed armed officers. FASTER Colorado's Laura Carno told me it is about trying to take these shooters by surprise.
They want to go in and take as many innocent people as they want. So in cases where there is an armed security guard uniformed or a school resource officer, they do everything they can to start their business away from that person. And so that's why from actually interdicting a situation as it's happening, having somebody that nobody knows, the bad guy at least doesn't know who it is, potentially closer.
Can you bring 10, 12 guns into a school, even if most of them are concealed, and not change the way that those school staffers interact with and teach students?
Yeah, you know, people are doing it today. And we're not hearing of any problems out there. So concealed means concealed. And Colorado just normal people, not in schools, but just ordinary people outside of schools that have all different kinds of jobs. 1 in 9 people in Colorado has a concealed carry permit. So there are concealed firearms among us, and it's not changing the way that we interact with one another.
In our final 30 seconds here, there are going to be the people who support gun rights, who love this idea, the people who support gun control, who hate it. Talk to me about the people who ardently support gun rights and think that this is a foolish idea. Senator Marco Rubio, Florida Governor Rick Scott. NRA loves those folks, and they think that this is a bad idea. What's the disconnect?
Yeah, I want them to talk to the people who do our training, the people who take our training, and understand that the faster you stop the shooter and the faster you stop the bleeding, the fewer people die. Having somebody there absolutely will make a difference.
Laura Carno, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
I asked Carno how you would prepare teachers to kill a student they know. That's in our full interview on the next Facebook page. And in the comments on that article, you'll find our Friday interview with a Marine combat vet who attended Columbine High School. He opposes arming teachers and figured it would have taken 20 to 24 of his Marines to stop the Columbine shooting. State Senator Randy Baumgartner says he will get sensitivity training. His local newspaper says he should just get out. The Republican facing a sexual harassment complaint that's been deemed credible is now facing several newspaper editorials calling for him to resign. Last week, Baumgartner called the findings of the investigation flawed and inaccurate. But he still promised that sensitivity training, and he voluntarily gave up his chairmanship of the Transportation Committee. The steamboat pilot, along with the Denver Post, have said that Baumgartner should leave office. Let us venture now into the DMV, the 10th circle of hell, where Denver has had a devil of a time with one particular public servant, a longtime DMV branch manager who would hide in her office when they got busy. She would put off paperwork, putting people's licenses in danger. Her boss thought the whole office staff was going to quit due to her behavior. How the DMV handled her case tells you everything you need to know about the DMV. The DMV spells trouble. Consider the disciplinary case spelled out against a branch manager in Denver who hid in her office when it got busy, keeping customers waiting. She sat on paperwork which held up license plates, putting drivers in jeopardy of trouble with police. Her employees felt belittled, rebuffed. Employees felt ignored, people crying, unable to eat, threatening to quit. She told one worker, "Shut your mouth." The DMV worried they'd have to replace her entire office. The DMV had the option to fire her, but didn't. She kept her job. That spells trouble. And that spells DMV. So instead of firing this branch manager, Denver Motor Vehicle simply demoted her, saying, quote, her technical competence was solid. So the next time you're sitting frustrated at the DMV, think just how frustrating it must be to be one of their many great employees who know the boss can behave like that and not get fired. Because we do strive for transparency around here, here is why we are not naming that DMV employee. Yes, she is paid by taxpayers and her failed disciplinary appeal is public record. But I'm not looking to publicly shame her. I would rather put the attention on the DMV, which refused to fire somebody who represented the horrendous customer service reputation that so many of their good employees have been fighting to shake. Denver's first coffee shop licensed for marijuana use has the only appropriate name for such a business. They're calling it the Coffee Joint. Today, Denver okayed the first social marijuana license to allow vaping and marijuana edibles inside this coffee shop in Lincoln Park. No smoking, though, because there's no outdoor patio. It's all indoors. The owners say employees will be spotted to train people who are too high, at which point they'll be asked to leave and pointed towards some safe options to get home. I would like to point you toward something that caught our eye, a recommendation of reporting that is not our own but is worth your time. NPR has looked into whether non-alcoholic beer functions as a recovery drink for athletes, like the Olympians, the Winter Games in South Korea. Olympians appear to be following this new trend that emerged out of Bavaria in Germany. Athletes in the Olympic Village have been spotted knocking down NA beer. NPR looks at the scientific evidence to see if they truly are getting some of the good stuff in beer, the phenols, without the bad stuff, in this case the alcohol, which would dehydrate an athlete. It's an interesting read, or as I like to think about it, justification. She is called a burn ambassador, a 13-year-old, taking the most terrifying moment of her life and turning it into hope for others. And all of the times that I've been to Colorado Springs, I've never seen the springs. Hey, do you?
Meteorologist Kathy Sabin. Nice to kick off a Monday with sunshine and temperatures near 60 this afternoon. Up at the Loveland ski area, bracing for a little more snow. Temperatures today running above average. As a matter of fact, that high of 57, a far cry from the average of 49. And we have another mild day coming up tomorrow. 41 degrees at the airport now will call for overnight low temperatures to be about half that number. There are winter weather and travel advisories out across the western slope and out across the western part of the U.S., but we are not anticipating really much in the way of any weather until the middle part of the week around here. And so concerns for high fire danger as temperatures soar above average again tomorrow. Our fair skies will get us to 20 during the overnight time period. Tomorrow, temperatures warming to 50 by lunchtime. The high temperature above average in the mid-50s. A nice warming trend, and really the only storm we're tracking is a midweek storm that may bring a chance of flurries on Wednesday.
Kathy, thank you. Trinity Larson is a 13-year-old who speaks with incredible authority and compassion. A year after the girl from Granby was severely burned over a quarter of her body, she reached out as an ambassador for the Children's Hospital Burn Unit.
So this is before her accident.
I was a very outgoing girl, and I had a lot of friends up in Granby.
And then this was in ICU.
I think the tougher things I've had to overcome is actually going out in public places and not getting all scared and shy.
She was very outgoing. She could walk into a room and make friends just about anywhere she went. She was a cheerleader.
April 2nd of 2017, my friends were over for a sleepover and they wanted to do a bonfire. And one of the kids there was shaking a gas and oil mix onto the fire, and some of it was getting onto me. And as the wind picked up, the fire got bigger and it caught on me.
My name is Kim Weavers, and I am Trinity's mother. Seeing your kid come in hooked to all kinds of tubes and everything else has been one of the hardest things for me.
My mom and I think the burn team at Children's Hospital has helped me a lot. Physically, I don't really get any pain, but emotionally, I do get a lot of pain. Sometimes I didn't even look my family in the eyes. It's getting easier. It was kind of always easy because, I knew none of it was on purpose. It was all an accident.
She is amazing. She's been tough through all of this, coming out telling me that she wasn't mad at anyone, that it was just an accident.
I'm the ambassador for the burn team at Children's Hospital. They said, we're picking you to be an ambassador because no matter how tough or how much we pushed you guys, and we pushed you, you still fought through it and tried your best.
The mask and the pressure garments are treatments to limit the scarring. The hope is Trinity will have those off in 6 months to a year. Our next question comes from a viewer named Mike Mitchell, who asks, where are the springs in Colorado Springs? That's a good question, Mike. So it turns out the Colorado Springs is a touch of a misnomer. It should be Colorado Spring. The town was first established in the early 1870s. William Jackson Palmer and William Bell connected Colorado Springs and Manitou Springs. According to the Pioneer Museum down there, the founders thought that Colorado Springs would be good for homes, churches, schools, and businesses, and then Manitou would be like the neighboring resort town where people would go up and enjoy the springs. The lack of actual springs in Colorado Springs seems to have been a bit of a joke for locals early on until a doctor made a discovery in 1880.
You could say there was almost a delight and a relief to locals that a spring was finally found, and the Gazette even went to the lengths of publishing an article about the discovery of the springs, and I'm paraphrasing here, but essentially they said, now the locals can finally be rid of the tiresome jokes about the springless springs. Finally, we have our own spring.
So they went and turned it into a spring thing. It's on the west side of downtown in Monument Valley Park. In 1926, leaders there renamed it Tahoma Spring. They built a pavilion around it. Then 9 years later was the Great Memorial Day flood. It damaged the spring and the pavilion. Then another flood came along 30 years later in '65 and wiped the pavilion out altogether. So they just capped off the spring. It's just that pile of rocks there in the park. You could walk right by it and not realize that is the Colorado Spring. This is not the end of the story. That's the plan that the Historic Preservation Alliance of Colorado Springs has to try and bring back Tehama Spring, rebuild the pavilion, and once again, make the spring a thing. Next, we will introduce you to some Coloradans who are equally passionate about very different careers. Fire station rookies getting their first taste of action, and a former Casa Bonita cliff diver who went pro. He now dives for audiences that are not eating piles of Mexican food. I want to tell you about some more of the good ones, and they're almost all good ones, public servants we've caught doing the right thing. And they did plenty of it at South Metro Fire Station 61 over the weekend. 19 emergencies in one 48-hour shift. The calls included a house fire early Sunday morning. It was a rookie firefighter's first fire. Couldn't blame Jared Lombardi for getting a little restless. He's been waiting months to work his first fire on the job. South Metro's video allows us to see what it's like for firefighters right as they're arriving.
Engine 63, Engine 61, Medic 63, Battalion Chief 61, confirmed residential structure fire. Map page R22A.
The home involved in this fire was a total loss. Thankfully, no one was injured in all of this. Our apologies to Jared Lombardi, who we now understand has to buy ice cream for the entire Station 61 for appearing here on Next. Travis Sims' job involves a lot of ups and downs. He started diving in high school. Then he became one of those famous cliff divers at Casa Bonita. Now he's a professional cliff diver.
All right, 3, 2, 1. I'm Travis Sims, and I'm a professional cliff diver. The whole point of it is to, overcome your fear, and so it's really the most freeing feeling there is, to be honest. Just trusting in yourself that you can, make it down from a big height safely. A lot of times when we look for cliffs, there's a lot that we look for. I mean, first of all, we have to make sure that the water is deep enough. Generally speaking, it should at least be 10 to 12 feet at the very minimum. My highest is 130 feet. It was off of Havasu Falls in the Grand Canyon. And yeah, that's my highest, 130 feet. You train and then you do it and you get the reward for it. And that reward for us is jumping big waterfalls and big cliffs, and just keeps us alive, really.
We finish with your feedback tonight. Nicole Scott, writes in talking about the schools that are choosing to arm teachers. And she brings up another point about these small rural schools, asking, will they be prepared to step over a child begging for help? Would they step over their own child? These are schools where everybody knows everybody. Nicole, I don't think anybody's describing a good scenario or an ideal one. I think people are trying to figure out, navigate the best of bad scenario. We're going to try to bring you as many perspectives on the topic as we can. Tom Austin writes in tonight, not pleased with me when I referred to the state legislature as the ledge. Tom said, Kyle dumbs down the language and contributes to the fall of our language. Tom notes that he doesn't watch Next, so I'm unclear how he saw me say that. But Tom, if you're still not watching Next, I try to talk to folks like folks talk to each other. Plain spoken. See you next time. I know I will, Tom.